Perek Aleph, the first chapter, Mishnah Aleph. Some people are complaining that we said too much Hebrew or we didn't translate, so I'll try to translate a little bit more. Okay. So let's start reading now. B'shloishim v'shtayim nesivas pliyas chachma. Within, like the word bereshis, from within, the 32 nesivos pliyas chachma. Nesiv is a path. And there's different in the language of Chazal, the language of Gemara and Chazal. There's different ways to say a path. There's a urcha, and there's a derech, and there's a nesiv. The Zohar Kodesh writes that the word nesiv is a private path, something that's not well trodden, so a path less traveled. There's a path that's an open path that people have gone many times, and then there's a nesiv is like a private path. We'll see what this means. Pliyas chachma. So chachma is pella, which is wonder, which is hafla, something that's separate. Ishki afliya neder. Oisa maisa pella, someone does something that's wonderful, something that's extraordinary. That's something that we don't have a full understanding of. Chachma. So the 32 are paths that emerge from Chachma. So beyond Chachma is Ayin. Chachma Ayin Timotze is Ayin. Is the Ein Sof is infinity. Infinite, has no tzura, has no thing that we can call anything. And from that, there emerge these 32 paths. There's 32 paths, obviously, which we'll say right away in the Mishnah Beis. The 32 paths are going to be the Esespheres Blima, which is the 10 spheres. And then it says V'esem v'shtayim oisius, and the 22 letters of the Aleph Beis. So what's the 32? The 32 is like the Mishnah says, or the next Mishnah says. The next says that it's the 10 spheres and the 22 letters of the Aleph Beis. Okay. What's the difference between the spheres and the Aleph Beis? These are all tools through Kaviyachol, Hashem created the world. The world is being created continuously. So we have Shemus, which is going to say right now there's names of Hashem. We have names that correspond to different spheres, and the spheres are another type of channel, another type of path that's for creation. And we have Oisius. So what's the difference between these three things? Why do we need these three things? Why do we need spheres, Shemus? So you have infinite, you have Ein Sof. You have infinite. That cannot be grasped, is ineffable, we can't describe it. Whatever we say about it, it's already agdar, it's already a definition. We don't have a definition, it's beyond definitions. And then the world, the way we see it, is a world where everything is defined, everything has dimensions, there's time, there's space, everything has physical location and dimensions. So how does it go from a place of dimensionless, where infinity, how does it show up into this bria that we see in multiplicity and many? What's the means through which this happens? How does this happen? Again, we said it technically could have happened because kachal b'rtzoyneh. That's it. That's because there was Hashem had a desire. That's the way it came. But if that would have been the story of creation, then we wouldn't have any tfisa. We wouldn't have any understanding in creation. So you couldn't say the statement of B'sarech Salakah. The whole statement of B'sarech Salakah means that I can see from my understanding of my own inner development and my own inner life, or even from my flesh, I can see how, from the micro, I can see on the macro. It doesn't have to be this way, but that's the way it was. That's the way David created this bria, that it should be this way. And what's the medium through it's created? So there's names. Look in the Torah, right? There's different names of Hashem, and each obviously name represents something else. There's generally Shiva Shem Hashem and Chakim. There's 7 basic names of Hashem, which ultimately comes into 10 names. And this is one way. So there's obviously some type of process, Bereshit, that Bereshit bar Lakim, Lakim Asher Kol Lakim also, that Hashem created. So there's some Lakim or Hashem. There's some type of name that's in the process of creation. There's also the Mamoris, the 10 utterances, which is the beginning of creation, where it says, Vayirma Hashem Yair, Vayirma Hashem. These are the Mamoris, the world was created. We know that Mamoris is connected to the spheres. These are all 10. These are patterns of 10 that constantly happen in the Torah. So why do we need these 10? What's the 10? What's the structure of 10? Why Dafka 10? And the Sefer Yetzirah is also going to ask the same question. It's going to say, Eser v'lo Teisha, Eser v'lo Echad. Say, why Epis? What's 10? Why 10? 15 spheres, 18 spheres, 2 spheres. What is 10? What's the number 10? And what are these letters? What is the letters? What's also the sort of the Isis? What are we saying about the letters? That the letters are also another conduit, another way through which creation came about. What's the difference? Why do you need all these 3 patterns? So the Lamed Vav Nesivis is saying it's the Esa spheres, and it's the Chav Bez Isis. That's the simple Pirush of that. The Pirush Aravid, which is Miyuchas to the Ravid, it's not the Ravid himself, but it's a Pirush that's Miyuchas to the Ravid. He says that the 37 Nesivis Chachma are 32 forms of Sichlim, not the 10 spheres and the 22 Isis. It's different forms of Seichel, of different types of intelligence. He divides it into a long arichas explaining what the different Sichlim are. He goes into a long arichas to explain what these Sichlim are. These are like dakistic Seichel Mufla, Seichel Mazir, Seichel Mekudash, Seichel Kavua, Seichel Nishrash, Seichel Shefa Nivdal, Seichel Nistar, Seichel Shalom. Different forms of intelligence, and these are the Sivas, the 32 paths are the different forms of Seichel.
Where does he have a makor for these mysterious?
That's a good shayla. A lot of these things we don't. I just want to say, Derech Agav, that in the Agdom of Chesel Avram by Avram HaMalach, the student of the Magid, and also in Pri Aretz, which he once spoke about, that there's Pri Aretz from the Mendel Vitebsker. The Torah is very similar, and sometimes actually the Torah is written in one Sefer and written in the other Sefer, and they're back and forth. It says, Chesel Avram says this is Pri Aretz, sometimes Pri Aretz says this is Chesel Avram. It's the same Torah almost. Over there, he talks about the spheres as Sichlim. That the spheres are forms of intelligence, and they're higher levels of intelligence. So you say Chesed Gvura, we know Chesed Gvura, this what we mean, let's say, kindness, compassion. These are midas, we're talking about them as midas. And he said, no, they're Sichlim. So it's sort of saying that we said also last week that Bereshis is B'chachmusa. That Bereshis Bar Lakim, everything is created through intelligence. Sort of the interface, Kaviyachal, this is all Kaviyachal, let's remember this, that the interface between the Ein Sof, the infinity, and the finite world is Chachma. The Chachma. First is B'chachmusa. And in B'chachmusa, in Chachma, which is the Goylam, which is the original properties of everything, includes everything, and that's like that holds the kernel of the intelligence of everything that's been created. So Bereshis Bar Lakim, Esa Shemayim L'Rabbis Tzavam, that everything was created, Aretz Shemayim, everything was created in day one, means everything was created in a Seichel. It's like almost like Kaviyachim, like if you would create something. First you have an idea, and when you have an idea of something, you have everything that's what's going to eventually articulate and through you're going to speak or actually do it. It could take weeks, it could take months until you actually create it. But when it exists with the Chachma, it exists as skir achas. It's one flash, and everything is included with that thing. So first, the original Kaviyachal of the Ein Sof being projected in the starting of the process of something that's outside of itself is a Chachma. It's like a mashal, like a person. When the first time you create something, if you're doing something Maisa, it's already completely outside yourself. If you're doing something, you're speaking, then it's also like you're externalizing. Someone else can hear it. Either if you're thinking, that's the thought for yourself. But that thought in itself is also something that's also within you. It's within you because you're thinking within your mind, but it's an extra thing. It's a new thought. If it's a new thought, that means it's something extra to you. Kaviyachal, right? It's like it's nikna. It's something you were kind of this. You made a king. That's what's called seichnat nikna. You acquire this new level of intelligence. It means you first didn't know it. Now you do know it. That thing is almost like an outside thing that's now in your brain. Kaviyachol. Yeah, the Ramashit. So that idea is b'chachmusa means in the beginning of all creation. That's why you could say in many different levels of seichel. Dakas to dakas and dakas are more refined, more subtle forms of chachma. And then finally, it starts articulating, just like when you have an intelligence. There's many different levels of seichel. I can have like an intuition for something. When I have that intuition, like a Baruch HaMavrik, I have that original intuition, it's very, very subtle. I can't even explain it in words. I can't really say what I'm thinking. But then I think of it a little more, then I can start thinking about it. I can say, okay, that's exactly what I'm thinking, and this is what a thought is. So the thought is being reduced, and it's being reduced, until finally I can actually explain it. So the different levels of intelligence. So that the interface between the Ein Sof, and the Kaviyachol, the Ein Sof, and the Bria is these levels of Sichlin. Or, which is more the most Mefarshim are going to say, that we're actually talking about either the Chav Beis Sataya and the Esses Spheres. So, B'shtayim and Nesivas Pli is Chachma. So if you have the Gra over here, the Gra writes, I don't know if you have the Sefer the Gra, but the Gra writes, by Nesivas, he says, Mayim Az Nesiva, V'ikram Heim B'mayim. That the Ikr, the main idea where we find the idea of an Nesiv, a path, is in water. And then he says, so that's the Chachma, that's the water. That's the Goylom. We said Chachma is Gematria Goylom, which the Ravid also brings down. And the Goylom, which is the original first thing that emerges, Shemuchen lekabel tzuras kol ha'osis. So it's the first thing that's ready to receive everything. So it's like the Goylom, the potential, the seed, and then eventually the seed becomes developed, and you have life. And then he brings out Uba'olam hamayim muchen l'chol tzura. And therefore, in creation, Mayim is Muchen L'chol Tzura. Mayim doesn't have a form yet. That's the whole idea of Mayim, is that it's Chasid Tzura. It doesn't have a Tzura. That's why a person has to go to the mikveh, technically. Because if you have a certain strong Tzura, let's say you're angry, you're tummy or something, you have to go back to a place that's Chasid Tzura, that doesn't have form, which is Mayim. It's undifferentiated. That's why it's Chachma. It's not like Bina. It's not defined yet. V'chein ein davar b'li Mayim. Everything comes from water. Everything emerges from water. So water is the place of the potential. That's the place of the Chachma. And then from the Chachma, it starts flowering out and starts emerging. Now, huh? No, it's not chaylik. It's just a way. Yeah, breaking down the process. Yeah. Emes. No, I'm not saying it's chaylik. There's no machlikas in the idea. Yeah. Emes. Okay. So here it says like this. So b'shloishim v'shtayim nesivas pli is chachma chakak. So the chakika, we said already, is chakika means it's not ksiva. Ksiva means something that's, writing means that it's something that's extra on the thing. You're writing on the page. So there's a page and you're writing on it. Chakika means that you're engraving, means really it has this already inside it before. You're just revealing it. So the chakika, to reveal, in the Ein Sof Kaviyachol, what becomes revealed? It becomes revealed now like this. Ka, Yutke Vavke, Tzvakos, Elekei Yisrael, Elikim Chaim, Melech Olam, Kel Shakai, Racham V'Chanun, Ram V'Nisa, Shoichen Ad, Morim V'Kodesh Shmoy. Okay, what's this? What's these words? I mean, we can translate. So Hashem, Tzvak is one of the names of Hashem. Elekei Yisrael, the God of Israel. Elikim Chaim, the living God. Melech Olam, the King of the universe, Master of the universe. Kel Shakai, Racham, compassionate, Chanun, grace. Ram, transcendent, V'Nisa, higher. Shoichen Ad, Morim, that dwells on high, Kadosh, high, transcendent. Shmoy, his name is transcendent. So what are these things? So the Rebbe Lezer of Germaiza, which is the Baal HaKeach. So the Baal HaKeach writes that there's a lot of different gersois here. So he says that this Hiskir Yud Shemus Kineged Yung Mamaras. In the Girsa of the Rekeach, there's 10. There's 10 names. I don't know exactly how you can figure out the 10 names. Maybe you could. Maybe it's a different Girsa. But the different Gersois. Some Gersois, to be honest, doesn't have the whole thing. It says Chakak Hashem Yudke Vavke, and then it says Bore Elamai. It's missing all those other names. In this Girsa that we have, again, it could be your Girsa, a little different version. According to Blazer Gamaiza, according to the Balarkeach, there's 10 Mamaris.
I think you could say ka.
Okay, I just want to say right before you start counting, because if you look at the Gra, in the Gra's Girsa, the Gra says that these Shemus, he says, we say Yud K, Ad V'Kodeshu, Kul Meim Kenuim L'Chach Mazu, Veim Chaf Beis Tevis. There's 22 Tevis, Keneged Chaf Beis Atayah. So he counts 22. The 22 is actually more aligned. You get 21, but it could be 22. So either, or he says Ramban says one. Rachana could be one. Yeah, exactly. You can count them as one. You can count them as two. Either you're getting 10 names of Hashem, or you're getting the 22 Isis. Okay, this is what we have to understand. This is like the technical thing. But what is it trying to say? It's so it's Shiloh. It's Hashem. I don't know. So it's a good question. So that's a good Shiloh. And also Lekei Yisrael is Hashem, and Lekim is Lekachayim is Hashem, means different. So, V'yesh Loimar, again, what we're trying to say is like this. What is the Sefer Yetzirah trying to say? What is he trying to hammer in? He's trying to say the Sefer Yetzirah has, we said this last time, and we have to repeat this over and over again. It's trying to say that on the level of Olam Shana Nefesh, and time, space, and Nefesh is consciousness, or the person, the human being, you should understand that everything that we see in this world, and we see it through the prism, through these eyes of whether through time or space, and our consciousness that's observing the time and the space, we see things in ksavis, in dimensions. We see 6 dimensions and 7, and we see all of the numbers and 12, and the stars and the planets, and everything has like order and structures. And it's going to play out also in Klal Yisrael. It's going to be 3 Avos, and it's going to be 12 Shvat. It's all going to play out, and it's going to be all linked. All these images are all going to be linked to each other. So you're going to look at the world of Olam, which is like space, and you're going to see in space, let's say for example, there's you beg Gule Alachsen. That if you do the structure, you make a cube, you're going to get 12 poles. I don't know, say Gule Alachsen, but Alachsen. Or if you do this 10 spheres, and you do three triangles, one on top of the next, you're going to get 12 side lines. Lines that are not vertical or horizontal, but are slanted. So you're looking at space, and you're saying that this is in space. And then there's time. And you'll say there's 12 times, there's 12 months. Okay, and then there's 12 nefashis. There's 12 types of nefashis of a person, which is Klal Yisrael in 12 shvatim. And then there are 12 parts of the body, which Sefer Yetzirah is going to explain that there's 12 parts of the body. And the same thing is going to be, there's going to be 3, and there's going to be 7. There's going to be these structures that appear in Olam, Shana, and Nefesh. What's the Nakuda, what he's trying to say, whoever the Mechaber is, let's say Avraham Avinu, he's trying to say is that everything you see is really Echad. It's all one. It's one that becomes manifest and is being shown and it's appearing into all the multi-dimensions. The moment you recognize that within your body, and that's why the Sefer Yetzirah is going to be a lot about the body, that's going to talk about the different parts of the body, and this part of the body, that part of the body. The moment you recognize it within the body, your kli, your vessel, becomes more refined. If I recognize that this is this name, and the Aleph, and this is my Mem, and this is the Shin, right? And these are the Chav Beis Oisis, and these are the letters, and these are the spheres. All of a sudden, I recognize that my body is really a conduit that's holding the space Kaviyachol for the Ein Sof, the Ein Sof. So if this is true of my body, and I feel this way, and I feel like I'm just a vessel that's holding HaKadosh Baruch Hu's light. That's what I am, really. So this is true of my body. This is true in the life that I see, in the times that are happening, and in the space, in the experience of space. So once I understand all these things that are interlinked, and I understand them, there's going to be the avoida is really to understand this in the nefesh. Is to understand this, how this works in your own nafshistik, how it works within your own life. Because once you cleanse on the level of the guf, on the level of the body, you cleanse yourself in this way, then you can actually start seeing it within all of creation. Because we're not really seeing the world as it is. We're seeing the world as we are. So if we can cleanse our own selves in this process, what we can do is we can start seeing the world in a different way. Start seeing the Achdus Hashem and everything. So that's the objective. So let's go back to the beginning. He's saying that there's Ein Sof. And the Ein Sof is chokak, which means there's an emergence of somethingness that comes from this emptiness, from this nothingness, from this Ein Sof. What emerges first is the Shem Yud-K, which is first is Yud, and that's the name. What Yud-K is one of the names of Hashem, Shem Ka. This is the name of Hashem. But Yud-K is also Chachma and Bina. Yud is Chachma, and Hey is Bina. So Yud is like the kernel of the idea, and Hey is already where there's more expansion, which is Bina, which is the left part of the brain, left understanding. Yud K also, we'll see soon, is going to be connected also to Yud is the Moyach. The tip of the Moyach comes from Yud, and the Hey is already the Lev, where it's already expanding. The Yud K, if everything originates from the Yud, and this is gathered the Torah from Risol Sarug, which is not found in the Kisveri, but it's the Torah from the Arif and Risol Sarug, that La'achar Tzimtzum, the Torah Malbush, and this which Sefer Yetzirah is very involved in this world, we'll see later, is that the first emergence of somethingness that emerges is the letter Yud. That's the first thing, the Nekuda. The first Nekuda, the letter is Yud. Once the Yud already reveals itself, which means that's the first beginning, then you can start, then other letters can form, because every letter really comes from Yud, right? So if you'll take L'mashal a Hey, Rabbi Shabbat in Samach Vav writes this, if you take L'mashal the letter Hey, the Hey is really a Vav and a Dalet. Because a Hey is a line, right? It's a vertical line, a horizontal line, a vertical line. And then a left leg. That's a Dalet and a Vav. In the letter Yud, you have Yud, Vav, Dalet. That's what the letter Yud is comprised of 3 letters. So the Yud is the Nukuda, the Vav is the Kav, which means it's starting to move, and the Shetach is the Dalet. That becomes a Hey. So it means that it starts off as a point, and it's slowly opening up. In the Nefesh Adam, that means that if we want to be correctly in this world, we'll see that this is a tzaddik we'll learn soon. If you want to be in a right way of being in this world, your hispashtus, the way you're going to express yourself in this world, has to come really from your Ein Sof Kaviyachol, from your neshama, from the higher part of yourself. And then it has to start unfolding. It has to be chakak, not forced. It's sort of emerges from your Yud to your heart, from your Yud, from your Moyach to your Lev. That's the way the movement has to move forward. Then from the Yud K, it becomes Yud K Vav K. So the Yud and the Hey now becomes, and a Vav also comes down with some Shacha. It's going further down, which is in the Midas. And then it comes to Hey into Malchus. Grada, just before we explain what this is, if you look again, if Rabbi Lezer Gemaiza, again, we should buy the Sefer Yetzirah as a Purushim so we can see it inside. He writes that Chachma, Hashem Chachma Yasad Aretz, Yud Ke Vav Ke Pirush, Hoya Hoive Iya. This is one of the earliest Makaris for this, by the way. The earliest Makar that we have, everyone knows this. Today you ask any Barbi Rav, I won't say that. Yud Ke Vav Ke is Hoya Hoive Iya. Everyone knows this. I mean, if you didn't learn the Cheder, then you learn another Cheder. But everyone knows this. Yeah, where's it come from? Where's it come? It comes. The first shayrish that we have this idea actually comes from Yehuda Chassid, which is the Rebbe and the Shver of Rebbe Lezer Gemaiza of the Baal Arkech. By the way, you know what his wife's name was? There's a famous story. He saw his wife by the crusade. You familiar with the story? Baal Arkech. His wife and children were murdered in front of him. It's a horrifying story. His wife's name was Delucha. So, you think you have funny names today? They had interesting names. That was a name. There was no Hebrew name. That was a name. Anyway, so he says, "Avay Yudke Vavke Pirsh Hoya Hoyviyah." So pshat is that that's kavanah. Yeah, kavanah. The Shulchan, the Mechaber brings down. Yeah, that's kavanah. That's correct. When you say Yudke Vavke, you have the Mechabernas. This is got the machlokes between the Magen Avram and the Graph. You have to mechaven when you say, because you say Yud Kevavke, you mechaven. You also say Al Yud. You have to say Adnos. So according to the Graph, you have to mechaven both. You can't just mechaven Yud Kevavke. When you say Baruch Atah Hashem, you mechaven Yud Kevavke, you mechaven also Adnos. But there's a I don't get to the lumdus, but there's a grease that holds that there's today Keshenichtav is not Nikra, right? So it's Nichtav Yud Kevavke, but it's Nikra, the way it's pronounced, is Aleph Daled Nun Yud. So the Rambam actually says the difference in the Nichtav and the Nikra, when I get to a Shvua, that he sometimes considered Aleph Daled Nun Yud like a proper Shem, and sometimes it's not a Shem. So it's steer in the Rambam. So the Gur says it depends. If it's not the Nikra, then it's Yudkev, then Adel Dal Yud is one of the names. If it's not the Ksiv, then it's not one of the names. So, but Lepoil, when you mechaven Yudkev Vavke, but that idea of Yudkev Vavke, this comes from this Chassidi Ashkenaz. That was the first ones to reveal this. Getting back to what we're saying, Yudkev Vavke Hashem. Pshat is that it goes from Yudkev Vavke, which is the Yud, the kernel, the point, and then it slowly starts to develop into a Hey. So it's like slowly emerging. And then it starts descending. It's becoming more, it's more expansion. It goes into the Vav and into the Hey. The final Hey is the idea of Malchus. Which is, so Malchus is Hey. Yeah. The Yud Kei Vav Hey Bina Malchus. We're going to go Zar Yetz. Shchine Lo Shchine Tata. It's two madrigas Malchus. So in the nefesh, in the guf, let's say. So the Yud is Chachma, or Yud is Moach. The Hey is the Lev. The Vav is the torso, is the body. And the final Hey is the Mazriya, is what gives life. So Hey Tata gives the ability to birth new life, right? That's the lower Hey. That's why you have, for example, Magala Mukas has a long riches about this. You have, for example, that Sarai can give birth. She comes Hey, she gives birth. But Rivka is Hey. Okay, Rivka's over. But Leah can give birth. Rachel doesn't have a Hey, can't give birth. Same thing. So you need a Hey. The Hey is what gives the koyach of to the Mazriya. That's the tach. That's the malchus that gives the opening for the next. So the Yud K becomes Yud K Vav K. Also in the body, the Yud, Hey, the Vav, and then the Hey. So it's alignment, right? This alignment, and then it becomes Tzavakis. Tzavakis is what's Shem Tzavakis? The Gemara says Chagiga. That's Lashon Tzava. It's a language of legions, of an army of things. So you look at the world, what do you see? Armies, tzvakas. You see many. That's pshat tzvakas. Okay, so it goes from a singularity, from a nekuda, from a point, from beyond the point, from the Ein Sof, becomes a point. It starts unfolding. This is the Chai. The Chai is Elki Kaviyachal, right? The Chai is even the Bria, the creation. It comes from the Ein Sof, it becomes a little bit. Starts expanding, it becomes into many, and then not only becomes to many, it also comes to Lekei Yisrael. So what's that Lekei Yisrael? Lekei Yisrael means that this Chayis, this Oyer, this Ein Sof, Ein Sofius, that's now coming to Yudke, become the Yudke Vavke, that becomes Svokos, is not indifferent. And it's not like a Chayis Klali, the general comes down to the Chayis, and a living force that gives creation. But it's a Lekei Yisrael. There's a relationship. There's the Lekei Avram Yitzchak Yaakov, like the Kuzri says. Lekei Avram Yitzchak Yaakov. There's the Lekei of philosophies. There's a Lekeim. You can look at the Lekei of philosophers. There's a Lekei. There's like this force, this life force. It's not personal. I don't have a relationship. I can't daven. I can't have a dialogue with this force. But the Lekei Yisrael pshat is that it means that no, there's a Kodesh Baruch Hu cares about us, and there's a relationship. There's a revealing. That's a Lekei Yisrael. So it's from Yudkei to Yudkei Vavkei, to Tzvakis, to Lekei Yisrael. And how, I think it now goes back and forth. This Lekei Yisrael, which is already, we have, Zekei Li Van Veyo, I have already a connection, not even who. There's a connection, like the Shalach Kodesh writes, is Elokim Chaim. We shouldn't make the mistake that it's L'sasa Kein L'Hashem Elokecha. That it's Lekei Zov. It's a matches. It's a form. Who's my relationship to HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Who's my relationship with God? My relationship to Lekei is Lekei Yisrael. I know exactly what it is. It's defined. It's organized. It's structured. I got it. It's. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? It's not Elokim Chaim. Elokim Chaim pshat is. It's a graven image. It's a molten image. It's stuck. Cain. This is like. This is a totally different context. But someone recently asked me a question, if like, I don't want to get into the whole politics, it's a whole long arichas, but the certain Rebbes, or let's say the Rebbe, Lubavitch Rebbe, did he change Chassidus? because maybe it looks a little different than they looked in the old country. I said, you don't understand. You don't understand the whole project. Then. The whole project is it's not only it's Torah, but the whole project is a relationship with Elokim Chaim. That's the project. The project is that a person should be in a constant dialogue with Elokim Chaim. What's the Elokim Chaim? What does the living God mean? What does it mean to have Elokim Chaim? Elokim Chaim means wherever you are, in any situation that you are, that becomes the whole truth, and you have to be living in that truth in relationship to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So if you live in Poland in the 1800s and they wore long reklach and they wore fur coats, that was the truth then. And if you came to another country and they're wearing something else, I'm not saying it's not sneers, but if you come to another country and they're wearing something else, Elokim Chaim, maybe recreating the old is lav dafka relationship. I'm not getting into that's what I said. I don't want to get into this whole political point of this, because there's dafka levushim and there's a whole long story. But there were different rabbis. The Chedush Harim. I don't know if you're familiar with the whole Ma'aseh. There was the Chedush Harim, the Kotzker. Some rabbis wanted dafka to keep the levushim. Some rabbis, that, like for example, the famous one is no. Yeah, no. Rimenov, Rimenov was dafka very makbid on the levush, and some rabbis said the Kotzker said, "I'll put on a cabbage head no cabbage." Cabbage, mamish cabbage. I'll pull out a cabbage head and we'll wear cabbage hats. Why? Because that's what people can afford. Wear cabbage, so you have to wear. So there was I'm not getting into that. I don't want to get. That's a very dangerous. I'm talking about the nekuda is Elokim Chaim. Pshat is a person has to ask himself every single day. You can't say I'm relying on yesterday because yesterday I had a relationship and the relationship was that in a particular way. Okay, but now I'm going through new challenges. Now it's a new reality. Now I have issues with my children. Now I have issues with Parnasa. I didn't have that yesterday. Now it's a new thing. What's Elokim Chaim? How's Hashem talking to me now? And how am I in dialogue with my Creator right this moment? That's Elokim Chaim. So the Lekei Yisrael and Elokim Chaim have to make sure that Lekei Yisrael is always Elokim Chaim. It's like a Lekei Yisrael, but we should always be Elokim Chaim. It should be something that's alive. This Hashem, Yudke, Vovke, Tzevoke, Lekei Yisrael, which is Elokim Chaim, is not only Lekei Yisrael, is Melech Olam, is the Melech of the whole Metzius of the world. It's the king of the master of the universe, which means that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Ashkacha Pratis, and to say in Torah Hashem, we have Ashkacha close, but this means that there's direction and Kavanah in the entire Bria. And like we say, Shema Yisrael Hashem, She'Elokeinu Hashem Echad, that is Hashem, who's the Elokeinu now, Rashi, yeah, it's Rashi, who's the Elokeinu now, La'aslo will be Hashem Echad, one. It's Melech Olam. Then we say that not only is the koyach halakhi, this divine life force, that's be'emes ein sof, that's coming down into sof. It's infinite. That's coming down into the hagdara, the gvulim of the bria, of the boundaries of the creation. Is also kel shakai. What's kel shakai? Kel shakai means that it's furthering things. Kel shakai is a name. The Baal Rukeach writes it, not here, but he writes it in Seder Azia, that the Kel Shaka is a name it appears in the Torah always when there's children. Whenever there's children, when there's a bracha for children, when there's a bracha for Avram or for Yaakov giving to Ephraim, whenever there's a bracha for children, they always use the word Kel Shaka. Why? Because Shaka is also Shaddai. That's Pashtus. So that represents a mother giving milk, which means birth. But it also Al Pi Gematria, that the word Puruvu is 500, which is Ramach and Ranab together, right? So there's a Mach Ivorim in the Zachar, and there's a Ranab Ivorim in the Keva. So the Yichud, the Zachar in the Keva, male and female, is 500, which produces a child, and that's Puruvu, is Gematria, is 500. The Milio Oisis, Shem Shakai, is also 500. The Yunun and the Dalatov and the Vav Dalet is also 500, which means that it's Shem Shaka. Shaka. So Shaka Pshat is that this is a shame that the name Kaviyachol, it's the Boira, to say in a very simple language, the Boira, the Ein Soifius, the infinite Boira, reveals itself in Yudke, then reveals itself even further to Yudke Vavke, then reveals itself to Tzvakes, then reveals itself to Lekei Yisrael, and said Elokim Chaim, and Melech Olam to everything, and Kel Shaka, and it's furthering creation. And then, not only that, it's also Racham V'Chaim. So how does Racham V'Chaim fit in? Because Racham V'Chaim means mamish, personal. Like if I could say Elokim Chaim, Lekei Yisrael, I could say Lekei Yisrael means took us out of Mitzrayim. Okay, excellent. Change your life, gave you a better avada. But Racham V'Chaim means someone that cares about you, and has a chmanas on you, and has compassion. It's very hard to languages. You say it's Ein Sof, and the Or, and it's one, and it comes down, and it's full, and it's becoming more condensed, and then we say the final form of its mamish, of its little, almost like not gashmis, but almost like a tzura form, is that it's a rachem v'chanun. Kipshuta, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is a rachem v'chanun. Rachem v'chanun means that HaKadosh Baruch Hu we're saying is a rachem. Yet, even though he says a rachem v'chanun, is ram v'nisa. That's why we always have to. That's why I say it's back. Rav Pinson, you should say it's Sakar Rachem V'Chanan, which means that HaKadosh Baruch Hu cares about you. And not only the hashgacha, but there's love and there's compassion, divine compassion for you. But you should remember there's always Rav Pinson. That oir is really transcendent. So it's transcendent oir that goes back to the Ein Sof, but the Ein Sof to the infinity. But the Ein Sof is now coming and becomes Rachem V'Chanan, but it still remains Rav Pinson. And it's Shoichen Ad Morim. It goes into the highest dwellings, the Kaddish Shmai, and it's Kaddish, it's transcendent. And not only that, even Shmai, even the Ratzon, even the manifestation, the revealing of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's name, even the Shmai is Kavayachal, Hu Shmayachad is really beyond our comprehension. That's what the Nekuda of this whole point is trying to say, is that even though it's mislabish into everything, we should remember, so you shouldn't think either way. You shouldn't think that it's not coming all the way down into the lowest levels, and you shouldn't think that it's only that it's all so down that it actually becomes kaviyachol embodied and miskashim. Yeah, that's the akshama. You shouldn't be miskashim the thing. This which is one of the real reasons why it says in Teres Kabbalah and the Ramak writes and even Malsham writes, with the danger of learning things, it becomes akshama. So you shouldn't make it akshama. You shouldn't make it into intangibility. That's what this piece is saying. Okay. Then, Ubara Ilamai, the Eibush HaKaviyachal creates. And how does he create? What's that? No, the Chakika is the Sivas, and that's, yeah.
But there's only like 10 or 20.
No, of the Yudkev, of the Shem?
Right, the Chakika was in every Nesiv separately.
No, the Chakika was in the Nesiv. In the Nesiv, Kaviyachal, in Chachma. Yeah, in the 32 Nesivas of Chachma, these are the things that emerged from the 32 Nesivas of Chachma, these oasis, these shemas. That's why we say that either it's the 10 spheres or the Chav Beis oasis. You have them both, according to the Gar, according to Barakech. But you're saying the Chakak is in the Ein Sof. In the Nesivas Chachma, these shemas, Yudke, Vavke, Yudke,
The Nesiv separately were all these shemas?
No. You could say that. Yes, yeah, you could say, or you could say in these 32 paths, all these were inside in all the 32 paths. You could say it either way. But then the kuda is that when you're looking at a particular thing, you say this is Shem Yudke Vavke, this is a Vavke, this is a certain name, Kel Shakai. You should know that really it's Chakak in Pliyas HaChachma in the Ein Sof. Then he says like this: B'shloisha barei lamai, b'shloisha svarim, with 3 svarim. Let's try to see svarim. And here's again kama gersas, many different versions. But let's read this one way. B'sefer, which is a book. V'sfar, which is a number. V'sipur, and a story. Which is B'sefer, B'svar, or B'sipur, is very clear. Who writes this? Many of the Farshim are going to write this. That B'sefer, B'svar, B'sipur is Olam Shal Nefesh. That B'sefer is space, objects. B'svar, number, is time. And B'sipur is communication, which is the nefesh.
This relates to the path of the Gra, Sefer's.
Well, we're going to talk about this right now. We're going to talk about it right now. So that's one girsa. But that B'sefer, B'sar, B'sipur are quality, quantity. You could say that also. Make it fancier. But it's time, space, and nefesh and consciousness, or quality, quantity. But that's what it's saying. But the Sefer doesn't have the Kudus, right? So you could read it b'Sefer, v'Sipur. B'Sefer, v'Sipur. A book and a book and a story. What's the book and a book and a story? So let's learn a little bit from Tzaddik. Now what is it? Sefer v'Sefer?
Yes.
Who's the Gra? Whose version? That's the Gra's version. Oh yeah, the Gra version is okay, that's correct.
He says the Sefer, the Sefer?
The Gra's version of the Sefer. But that's what most are trying to write it.
Translating as counting and writing? Why?
Because Sfar is a number. So Sfar is a number, it's counting. And we have to have a whole shir, which Be'ez Hashem will do next time, because we're going to talk about spheres. Why do we call them spheres? What's spheres? What's spheres? Yeah.
Does this have to be a different presentation than like Yitzhak? I mean, obviously they're historically...
Mitzad what?
In terms of like Tzimtzum and...
Lav Davka. You could say Chaka because it's Tzimtzum. Right? So this is a very big conversation because the Sefer Boyer and the Zohar HaKadosh all start Bereish B'nusa the Golov Glifel B'tirei Law. So Golov Glifel B'tirei Law, which you should know, yeah, is there's a Chakika in Kaviyachol in the Bria in the Boyer Kaviyachol. Is that Tzimtzum? That's what Ari reads it, right? So Ari, if once you have the Torah Ari, you can actually reread it, and all the Sfarim that they're all saying the same thing.
I would say it's pre-Simpson.
That's Tzimtzum. That's but there's also Tzimtzum. Yeah, okay, but there's always, but there's still it's a Tzimtzum flat Tzimtzum. The Tzimtzum Maruba and Tzimtzum there's the Tzimtzum of the eagle, which is the regular bit. This is the way Eitz Chaim starts, right? How does Eitz Chaim start? Like Shalbert and Levroya. So then there was a Tzimtzum, and then there was the Chaz over here. There was a Kav and the Chala. That's the beginning, right? So that's the Tzimtzum. That's a Tzimtzum of eagle, but there's a Tzimtzum of the Maruba, which is from Olam HaMalbush. It's not mentioned very clear, but okay, we'll see. We'll see. It's not Lav. It's Lav Dafka. It's Lav Dafka. I think I said this last time. I think it's a very important thing. Sefer Yetzirah is so small and so dense. It's 1,000 words, 1,300 words, and it's as short as Girsa. Is that all Rishonim that wrote on Sefer Yetzirah, put their whole Torah on Sefer Yetzirah. It's we don't know what Sefer Yetzirah says, but the Rasak said that Sefer Yetzirah says this, and the Ramban says it's like this, and the Belezer Gemaizer Koch says it says like this, and now the Ari says like this. Okay, it's like Torah Shebiksav. Shimon Panama Torah, exactly. So it means all these things. It's quite all these things. Okay, so let's learn a little over here. It's a long piece, but we'll go quickly. We'll run through a few pieces because I think this is a very negative thing in Torah Chassidus to explain what this is, how this works in Torah Chassidus. Actually, now I'm thinking rather maybe we'll start with the Zohar. Because really, we should start with the Zohar. We should start with the Zohar. The Zohar Parshas Terumah. Okay. So it's the beginning of the Zohar Parshas Terumah. Oh, Shlomo, this thing fell off. Oh.
Yeah, it's magnetic.
You don't put on the shirt, maybe? Okay, fine. Reb Shimon Pasach. You have the Zohar? Okay, Reb Shimon Pasach. Mi zois anishkaflik meshachar yafa levana baruch hakama yumakim unalos. Mi zois roza de treyam. Mi and zois is treyam. So mi is bina, right? 50. So that's Imaylah. We'll see soon. So that's the highest level. That's Bina. Mi Zois, Razet Rei Alman. Zois is already Marbet, Boiv, Oimer, Zeh, or Zois, especially Zois. So Zois is feminine, is Nukva, is Malchus. So it's a Chibur, Mi Zois. Mi Zois is the unity between Bina and Malchus. The Trei Alman is Chavim Kechada, V'dohu Oilam V'oilam. Me ho kmina. We already established that me, the level of what of me is who? Is bina. This chachma. Chachma is ma. Is what? There's nothing yet. There's no me already. I acknowledge that there's a what. I just don't know who. Right? It's a different type of question. Me is a dialogue question. Question of relationship. Ma is what? I don't even know. Kana ben shoel ma. Rashi writes that tinek tipishu. That's lashon Yerushalmi tipish, not Rasha, and not Tom. Ve'eni doy lahamik shalase v'shoel ma. Which means when you ask a shayla of ma, eini doy lahamik shalase. I don't understand. I just know ma avoid is islachem. I don't know what this avoid is. I don't know what you're doing. That's a question. I don't even know what's happening here. I don't even know what we're doing here. What's flying exactly? That's a ma question. That's chachma. Once you're already in chachma, the question of bina is it who? So who's here? What's here? I want to understand. It's a different type of question. So the Zohar Kodesh writes, "Mi akmina." We already established. Dagila le'ela shrusa the kaimel b'shayla. There's a big akdama l'Zohar. The Zohar talks about that me is kaimel l'shayla. That the question of me is a question. It's a good question. The ma sometimes is not a question of pashna maratzas. You don't know. You're not in the know. But me, that's a good question. When someone's talking to you, I want to know who's talking to me. Or better, I'm walking down the street, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem is talking to me always, right? I just want to know me. I want to have a relationship to that me. I want to see the me. I want to see the me bara Eila. Remember we talked about this last week. Elikim is Bi'ela. I want to see the me in the Eila. Me in the Eila means I know that Hashem is talking to me. Okay. The kam b'shayla me sum bar menechem v'ru me bara Eila. The me is bara Eila. Zois. What is Zois? Dagnetata. Letata alma tata v'tavayin teri alma b'chavur echad b'kishur echada kechada. So when there's a unity between the higher level of bina and malchus. Let's skip this little stickle about the moon. Okay. Who was able to create a yichud, a unity between bina and malchus? Yaakov. Why is Yaakov? Yaakov is Tiferes. So Yaakov was able to mechaber because Tiferes is the link that connects bina to malchus. And therefore, what comes out of it? 12, which we're going to see soon. The whole Sefer is going to be based on this structure of 12. We said there's 12 pshutas, 12 simple letters, 12 months, 12 parts in the body. These are going to be the 12. So the 12, the Yud basic Gvulei Alachsen, represents who the embodiment of the basic Gvulei Alachsen. That's the Shifteka. The Shvatim represents these 12. Yaakov Dav Shalom. So Yaakov, who is Shalom, who is Tiferes in its glory and its perfection, he was able to mechaber, to connect bina with malchus. But other people that are mechaber, that connect bina with malchus without Tiferes, so they don't have the Yud Beis Gvulei Alachsen, but you don't have the Shiftika. It's Gila Royes. Megalin right. La'elav Tata. There's Gila Royes. The Garim Pruda, and they cause separation in this world. And there's more of Isha Lachos Lesikach. Because what you're creating is a Isha Lachos, which you're creating a unity between Bina, which is the mother, Kaviyachal, Bina Ilah is Ema Ilah, and it's not Mamash Lachos, it's Bita, but it's Malchus, which is on the lower level. And that's Gila Royes. And why Dafka Yaakov? So the Zohar is going to say because Yaakov married two women, Leah and Rachel. Leah, very simply, is Olam Abina, is Alma Diskasia, the hidden world. Rachel is Alma Disgalia. Rachel is Vifas Mara, which is revealed, which is Alma Disgalia, the revealed world, which is Malchus. Yaakov, which is Tiferes, was able to connect the Shechina Elah, the Shechina Tata, Rachel and Leah, to marry both of them together, and therefore he did a Yichud Shalom, and therefore he was able to bring Bina into Malchus. This is Isis, but right, let's get to Isis. So why did Rachel, whose Malchus was jealous of Leah? That's normal. That the lower Shechina Tata, Malchus, wants to be like the higher, like Imi That's healthy. Kina Sofrim is a Gina Chachmasa. V'hacha Kina Sofrim. What is Kina Sofrim? The Kina of the Sofrim. It's the begin the Isla Sefer v'Sefer. Because the Kina Sofrim is the Kina of the Sofrim, which is the two Sfarim. The Sefer Tata, the Sefer and the Sefer. The lower Sefer, the higher Sefer. There's a Sefer of Bina and the Sefer of Malchus. Okay. We can understand this on the very, 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 very different levels. And we'll go Merakala Lakovid. I don't know Merakala Lakovid. We'll go a little bit historically. We'll start from the Zohar Kodesh, and then we'll go down to Teres Achsidis. And we'll go to the Gra also. We'll make a shortcut and visit at the Gra, and then we'll go down to Teres Achsidis. But the Gra guy over here is, you'll see, is very Chassidish. No, the Gra and the Magid say the same Torah. It's fascinating. You'll see soon. Which Kiyadua, there was a lot of Torah that said the same. Very famous quotes that you have from the Magid. They're also said in the Gra. Very famous from the Gra. We know from the Magid. Da mala maila mimach from Gra. They call me from the Gra. Hundreds. Akitza. What does the Zohar say? Let's start from the highest level, from the Zohar Kodesh. There's two svar, which goes with what Sefer Yetzirah says. There's a Sefer and there's a Sefer and there's a Sipur. Sipur means the story that's told in these two books. What's these two books? So the two books are like this. One is the book of Bina, which is Alma Decheres. It's the world of freedom. If you look in the Rai Mehem in this Parsha, right in the beginning of the Rai Mehem, if you even look a quick glance at it, you'll see over there where he talks about Alma Bina, Alma Decheres, about the Par Haduma, yeah. So the Par Haduma is that the idea is that Bina represents Alma Decheres. Alma Decheres is from the Samach Mem, Alma Decheres from the Malach HaMavis. That's the world of freedom. The Shai Ora, when he speaks about when he defines Olam Bina, because he's interested in the Oasis and the Shemus and the connected to the spheres. So Olam Haba, Gan Eden, is the Olam Bina. So which means that Olam Bina is the place of, it's our kaviyachol. It's not chachma. It's different. Chachma is the place where everything exists as a singularity. What's bina? Bina is a place where everything exists in definition. But there's two types of svarim. There's the sefer, the way it exists in olam bina, which is the sefer, the way you exist in Gan Eden. Your perfect image of self. What? I don't want to go there, but in case you're familiar with this, the sugya, yes, of course, a lot of, not mamish, but yeah. Exactly, exactly. Yes, if you're familiar with Platonic philosophy, otherwise, for this island, it's not negay at all. But it's not mamish the same thing. It's not mamish the same thing, because it's not just, there's a Maisa Razel Germaisa brings down the Soida Razia that it's a funny story. He brings it down the Sefer. I'm going to repeat the story the way it is. He says there was a boy in Worms where he lived, 1,000 years ago in Worms, and it's chafalipt on a girl. He decided he wants to marry this girl, and the parents, of course, there's a similar story going 1,000 years later, and the parents were not so excited about the shidduch, but the boy, the boy wants to get married to this girl. Better or worse, this is a story. This is the way it's repeated, and they come to the Rekeach. They come to the rabbi. What are you gonna do? Have this, and the boy was obviously a Yerushalayim. He's a fine boy. He came to the rabbi, and so the Rekeach starts telling him, she doesn't have money. The regular conversation. She doesn't have money. You can get prettier. You're better. You're smarter. all the things like the Gemara says in the end of Tainas. That the people that are beauty say ten yofi, ten ish, nachas, yichus. Everyone has their thing. I get to the boy says no, I don't want. This is the girl I want. This her. And the Rekeach writes there that I explained to the father that this boy married this girl already in Gan Eden. You know, they lived out their whole life. This is the girl. This is the girl. They were already married. The Mishadach, that children. They had this whole story. What this means, I'm not sure. But there was a whole story. Now they're living out. He's living out his other story. This is his Gilgal in this world. But you can't change that. That's the story, and this is the way they're living out the story. A kitzah. What this means is that there's a world of a certain perfection, and there's a certain world of this surah. This is the Sefer. This is one Sefer, and then there's the lower Sefer. What's the lower Sefer? The lower Sefer is the Sefer that you're writing. Life is a book, and you're the author, so you're writing the story, and that's your malchus. That's your story. That's my malchus. Is the way I appear in this world. These are the two Svarim. There's a Sefer of Shchinet Atah and a Sefer Shchinet La. But what the Zohar is saying is like this. This has to do with Hamtakas Adin, and it's a very, very important thing that the Zohar is saying. Hamtakas Adin is always b'sharshan. If you want to sweeten the din, what do? You have to go to the shoyesh. What's the shoyesh of din? Bina, right? That's classic. So you go to Olam Bina, and that's how you do the Hamtakas Adin. You sweeten the din. So what is this? What does it translate this into, like, very, very simple language? What does this mean? A person's stuck in their own stuckness, whatever it is in their life. They're not experiencing nothing. They're not experiencing shefa, not begashing, not beruchas. A person's stuck. They're stuck. They have a problem with parnasa, and a problem with children, or a problem with health, and everything's like stuck. So what you need to really do, for Hamtakas Adin, what you need to do is you have to pull down from the world of Olam Abina. Right, this is on a very high level. What you have to do is you have to draw down from the Olam Abina, which is the place of Cheres, Malach HaMavim, Cheres Malsatan, Cheres from all the freedom, the place of perfection, holiness, and perfect. And you have to draw down from that Bina. You have to draw down into your Malchus. That's the game, right? You have to draw that thing. So in other words, you're saying b'shoyshoy, in its shoyish, in the way things exist in its complete form. Every single person should have health and should have nachas and should have parnas barchava, right? Because the Eibush says and everything should be working correctly. And in the perfect world, in Yemais Mashiach, right? In the perfect world, the world reaches its perfection. So the bina becomes fully revealed. Intention of the entire creation becomes completely revealed in the malchus of this creation. So everything is in its perfect state. Everyone has full parnas and full nachas and full everything's living out its fullness. But you're not. So what do? You have to get to that place. You have to get to the Bina. To say this in a slightly more different way is, when a person's stuck, what they're trying to do is, whether it's conscious or not, what you're really trying to do is people are trying to have an experience of something that's transcendent of their problems. A person's stuck in a hard time, so they're trying to get to a little chayers. They're trying to get a little free out of their problems. Ultimately, what they want to do is draw down from the freedom and bring it down into the malchus, right? That would be the best case scenario. But the second base case scenario is, at least what you're trying to do is, I'm trying to have an experience while I'm stuck in this quagmire, I'm stuck in this mud. I want to have some type of hecherkeit, some type of elevation that I can feel connected to something that's higher. All of a sudden I can feel a little unburdened. I can feel cheres. I can daven, all of a sudden I can feel free from Malach HaMavis, and feel free from my Yetzirah, from my taivas. I want to feel that. So the natural instinct of a person that's stuck in his malchus, that the Sefer is not working out, is to try to draw down from Bina, from the place of Cheres. What the Zohar Kodesh is saying is that if you leapfrog Tiferes, it's Gilai Rois. It's very important. If you skip over Tiferes, if you don't have Torah, if you don't have groundedness, emotionally also, because Tiferes is also the emotions, and you're trying to have a peak experience that's going to take you out of your experience to get something, but you don't have proper levushim or kalim, say your midas are not in order, and say Tiferes zumat and Torah, say Torah, which Yaakov is midas at Tiferes, is not in order. What you can do is Gilai Rois. What does it mean Gilai Rois? What's Gilai Rois? Gilai Rois means, in the shoyish of Gilai Rois, it's a very complex issue, but in the shoyish of Gilai Rois, the shoyish of Gilai Rois is really a gilui of oir that there's no kalim to makabel. That's really what Gilai Rois is. Gilai Rois doesn't mean something it's terribly wrong because we don't have the kalim for it. Imi, the ishti, and then imi, it's a higher badrega of a choisin and imi. But that's crazy. What do you mean a choisin imi? You're saying no, the yichud is a higher level. The yichud, the yichud of the highest level of the spheres is things that we shouldn't be doing. And we shouldn't do it. It's taboo, and you shouldn't be doing these things. It's actually the worst possible things that a person could do. The reason why these are the worst possible things is not because there's no yichud there. That's the real place of the yichud. In the place of olam apirud, in the place of separation, we don't have the kelim to do yichud, and that we're doing is the opposite. It's the gila of the arayas. We're megala something. We're megaling an oil that's not incomprehensive. That's not possible to be revealed in this world. It's the same thing with Zavid. But the Gila Arayis, that's why the Chazal, and the Torah says ki chesed. I mean, it's chesed, but it's also chesed. The Torah is saying it's really, this is a mid of chesed, which means this is a very intense oil. But chalila, a person should do this type of oil because you don't have the kalim. That's Gila Arayis. So what the Zohar is saying is that when you mechaber bina with Malchus, without Leah and Rachel, without Midas Tiferes, without Torah, without Yaakov, without healthy emotions, psychologically speaking, and if you're talking about healthy emotions, you're trying to do bina to malchus, what you're doing is you're trying to reveal something that doesn't have proper kalim. And if it doesn't have proper kalim, it doesn't have proper vessels to receive this oil, all you're doing is bring a lot of oil taka, but it's the biggest choshech. It's the biggest choshech. And the only way you can actually draw bina to malchus in a correct way is specifically through midas tiferes. Dafka through Yaakov, Midas Emes and Yaakov and Torah, that's the way you can draw down from Bina to Malchus. So that's like on an avoidatical level. I think it's, especially in this generation, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. This is the Yisoid. The Yisoid is that you have to have Tiferes. You have Tiferes, then it's Agil Aros. Then it's the highest level of Yichud. That's on one madrega. Let's go back to let's take it from this direction a little bit away from this. That the Sefer means that there's two Svarim. And the two Svarim is, we are trying to make sure that our Sefer, the Latata, our lower book that we're writing in this world, the story that we're telling, which means written in a book, it's written in a book. What's which book is it being written? So there's a book that's being written. We're writing this book. We're trying to make sure that the Sefer and the Sefer are misachet. Part of making sure that the Sefer, the book and the book are one, that we're living out our lives of the lower Sefer, the Sefer that we're writing, the Sipur that we're telling us through the Sefer that we're writing is direct reflection of the higher Sefer. The way to do it is, the Sefer Yetzirah says how to do it. How does Kaviyachol, the Kadosh Baruch Hu, create the Shechina Elav Shechina Tatar? So it said, it's chakak, means it was engraved from the deepest place of the Ein Sof, right? And from the place of the Ein Sof, it started to reveal in Yud, and then the Hey, and Yud Vav Kei, which you said it started to go further. But the shoyers of the spashtos, the shoyers of the giving out, was from the mocker of the Ein Sof. If you translate into your own life, if you're writing your Sefer, you can write your Sefer, you can write your book of life from a very superficial place. It's a superficial story. Because tam aka mifupoi, you can write your story from a superficial way. I'm writing my story. What am I doing? I'm going here, I'm going there, I'm doing this, and I go, fine. Okay, that's your story. If you want to write your correct story, like we said, this is the avoid. It's telling what to do. It's saying that if you're chakak, if the story that you're saying, the emergence of self, of yourself, is coming from the deepest place of your nefesh, then it's going to be the story that's going to come out of a correct story. Then the story is going to be in a correct story. You have a little time? Let's look into Psadik a second. It's a long arichas, but I think we'll end with this. But we'll just go through a few verses of it. So Psadik is like this.
Meaning, like the ultimate. Ultimately, you're trying to bring the Ein Sof into your story.
Correct. You are
into your life.
Everything's the Ein Sof. You are now with your bchira, you have the koyach to draw down your nefesh pnima from your neshama, which is a chelik l'ka, for your Ein Sof, from your infinite, that it too should start shining outwards. Yeah. That every expression that you're expressing is an expression from the chokak into from the Ein Sof. Let's see what he says here. He writes over here like this. That the end of Avar Psachim, David Mizmer, Tchila Shas Shechina, there's a Mizmer, David Mizmer. It says twice. This ways. It says 128. You don't have it?
No, we do.
It's one. No, maybe it's not. No, I started too wrong.
No, it's just,
Let's go. What's the first page? No, maybe you're right. No. It's go 112. It goes 112. 112. I'm sorry. 112. Soid Ma'aser Bereishis, then Dorsha Ma'aser Bereishis. There's Ma'aser Makava, Ma'aser Bereishis, Ma'aser Arois. That you're with three people you shouldn't. The Gemara says, the Mishnah says Chagiga. With three people you shouldn't speak about Arois. With two people you shouldn't Ma'aser Bereishis, and even one person you shouldn't Ma'aser Makava, and then it's only a person that's a righteous person. Rashi Pirush, that's Sefer Yetzirah. That we're talking about the Sefer Yetzirah, and he goes on what Sefer Yetzirah is. They bring the Gemara in Sanhedrin that they were oising in Sefer Yetzirah, that through Sefer Yetzirah they were able to create. Behind the Pirush Gimel Svarim, like for 10 lines in, that the three books that we're writing is Sefer, V'Sipur. Yeah, that's what I said. It's like the Gra. That is Sefer, it's a book, and it's a story. Ki Yedua. There's three types of letters in the Torah. There's Oises Ravim and Zeirim, and there's the regular letters. There's the high letters, the small letters, and the middle letters. Ovayim Bezoyer, Reish Peres Vayikra, or Parshas Truma. It's not Mamish Shikol Zoyer, but it's connected. The Asen Revavim B'Binav, Asen Zeirim B'Malchus. Again, higher Oisius, lower Oisius, and the middle Oisius. The highest level of Oisius is in Bina. The lowest level of Oisius is in Malchus, and in between is the regular letters Oisius, which is the Mateferet. Okay. The highest level of Oisius, the highest expression of letters, of sounds, of expression, is in the heart. The middle is from the mind, and the lowest is from the Maisa.
the middle
is the Moyach, yeah, Tiferes. Yeah, change. Correct. Okay.
It's the pathway of the heart. It's 32.
Lev.
It's the heart channel of the
yeah. Shamatzas fush gediver der Ram levavim, beim Zeis be Moyach is nicht, weil schon pirk mach kosel Meile, da Ksav Gila machshav de Moyach. Va dibu Gila lev. It says like this. The two types of communications. You can write something and you can speak something. This also gathers from the Gra. The Gra writes the same thing. The Gra writes a little different. The Gra writes that dibur, speech, is immediate revelation. Ksav is intermediary revelation, which means when I speak to someone, immediately I'm revealing what I'm saying. You're receiving it. When you write something, there's a ksav, you're writing other things, dies on the page, rejuvenates by the person that's reading it. Do you have the Gra? If you look in the back, in the Pirush HaGra, you don't have it? He brings down from the bottom, he brings down Shamati Marav Mechaber. Sha'amali Pam, you have the Shamati Marav Mechaber, it's like there's an R in the bottom. On Svarim Seifim V'Safrim. By the end of Oifen Aleph. Okay, I'll tell you what it says over there. He says that Bereshis is Machshava, is thought. Vayomer hu sipur. Vayomer Hashem is the sipur, is the story. And va'achachach vayihi is the maisa. So there's the thought, the story, and then the action. Machshav diru maisa. And then va'achachach vayar lekim kitoiv. After everything, there's a seeing yet. You write the story, and then there's an observation of the story. If you look at the story of Bereshit, it sounds like Kaviyachol, the Eibusher is like almost like surprised. I created this. Vayar lekim kitoiv. What's Vayar lekim? You just did it. But that's what he's saying. There's almost like a separation. There's a process that it was created. Now the Kaviyachol, the boyer, is looking at the creation. There's a separate type of looking at this. He says that the same thing also, when you write a Sefer Torah, you need a Sefer where you're writing, you're reading from the Torah and writing it. Then you have to say it. There's a famous Bach that the Bach says that that's how you draw down the oisius, the kedusha, through the. If you're a Sefer, you should know this Bach. That's the way you're drawing down the kedusha through the dibur of the oisius. You're saying the shemus kaviyachol, and you're drawing down the Bach says that's the way you're drawing down the oir. So then you're writing the other sefer, the sefer, and then you see it. You look at it, what you just wrote. So you have the sefer, then the sefer Torah that you're writing, and then the looking at it is. So again,
Every Sefer Torah has to be copied.
Copies from another sefer Torah, yeah, especially if you're doing the shemus. That's a similar idea. Here he's saying a little bit with this nikud over here, that in ksav, you have thought and you put it onto words. But when you speak, there's an addition. Because when you're speaking to somebody, you're not just saying words. Of course, you're saying words. But when you're speaking to someone, it's coming, you can actually express your fullness of self. It could be through hand gestures or the tone that you're speaking, right? There's other things that are happening besides the words that you're saying. It's not monotone. You're not just hearing the words. You're hearing other things. So therefore, when you're speaking, you actually can give over your lev. You give over your heart. I could say something, you could do that with words, but the problem with words is, on a page, is someone could read it and not see it, and someone could read it and see it. That's already, it's separate for me. So you have to, if you're a good reader of something, you can read the person's neshama in his words. Anon nafshik ksavis yahavas, the Torah says, right? The David Kaviyachal gave himself into the Torah. The nafshi of the Torah is Kodesh Baruch in the Torah. You just have to have the seichel. You can read the Torah as a book of literature, but then you can see it as kedusha because you can connect to it. But in dibur, the definition of speech is that speech is allowing for the expression of something of the heart, something that's deeper. And he says oisis aksav is oisis the machshav. That's oisis machshav. Okay, then he goes into arichus, and then he says. And that therefore he says that dvar ma yotzim al alev nechlasim al alev. Ki be'emes, yeah, that dvar ma yotzim al alev nechlasim al alev. Let's read it further. The next page, on page 14, dvar ma yotzim al alev nechlasim al alev means things that come from the heart. So if it comes from the heart, it enters into the heart. There's no Shemaim Chazal, but it's a nice phrase. So it means it comes from the heart, it goes in the heart. It comes from the deepest place, which we're talking about, the chakak, right? That's the dibur. The dibur is in the place from the chakak. My expressions are not coming just from my seichel, from my machshava. It's coming from something that's deeper than machshava. It's coming from myself, from my nefesh. He says, Sefer oisis hamachshava hu derech mashal chachma ksuv b'Sefer Yetzirah shalanu. Sometimes you read Sefer Yetzirah, I can read the oisis, and shemashal lektanai murak hamachshava. V'dav ze efshagam lo misoil madas. Anyone can read this. You don't have to have a nefesh. You can read the words like Sefer Yetzirah. Anyone can read it. V'chein netak Sefer Yetzirah v'shar Sefer Kabbalah l'az. He says, therefore, even said others form like Sefer Yetzirah. He's talking about Sefer Yetzirah a lot. It's translated in different languages. Other people can read it. You can read it, but you're getting the machshava, maybe, but you're not getting the nefesh. V'gam yichol lo havin esak kasav. But you need to read it. V'aken eni yodem Sefer Yetzirah kasav shu chachmas hamachshava v'etzlam. Different b'tayla. Okay. Shu sipur dainu dibur. But if you really want to understand in the Sefer Yetzirah, you have to understand the sipur. You have to understand the story. What's the next page we have?
114.
We just did 114. So what's now? What? 126? 27? Okay. Okay, so he has a whole first with derived on 126 where he says the difference between the Adam and all other creatures is that they have only particular oisius. The Adam himself, if you look at the bottom of the left column, the Adam yesh v'chizu kol ha'chav beis oisius, v'chein yesh lo adibur b'shleimus v'chol chav beis oisius. Okay. Next page, 128. It's a whole arichas of this.
What is he saying about the Adam versus the animals?
Animals have two oisius, and Adam has the full expression. The possibility to speak all letters. We can speak all chav beis oisius, which means we can create. That's the difference. We can be a boira. I just want to feed the last piece of it, because this is the crux of this whole thing. These things that David HaMelech said, that Shars Shechina, that the Shechina rests, and then he spoke, means he spoke from the place of his shoyesh, of his neshama. He spoke from his depth of who he was. This is the Shars Shechina. When you speak, and the words that you're saying comes from your shoyesh of your chayes, when you speak this way, the divine aspect of yourself is being expressed. The Shechina starts speaking through your mouth. And that's Ruach HaKodesh. So what's Ruach HaKodesh? Let's go back to what he's saying in the Sefer Yetzirah. There's two ways how a person can speak. You can speak, when in Mitzrayim is the Metzar of May, is Metzar Mayim. In Mitzrayim is Metzar, there's a constriction, and that's what the Zohar HaKadosh writes in Shmois, that Mitzrayim is a constriction of Dibur, right? That they didn't have Dibur. There's a Metzar of May, of Koyach HaBin. Now, people didn't speak? People didn't speak? What does it mean that it was a Metzar of Bina? What is a Metzar? What does it mean, a constriction of speech? And Moshe was a kvatpe, and therefore there was no speech. And then El Dvarim Shedim Moshe finally becomes a medaber. That the whole project is, she becomes misaprim. What was the problem? What is Mitzrayim? Mitzrayim means there's two types of speech that a person can have. I mean, there's multiple levels, but the two extreme levels of speech is sometimes a person speaks. What's the speech of an eved? What's the speech? What's the speech of a slave? I don't mean a person that's not mamish a slave. A person that's enslaved.
It's really functional.
Exactly. It's functional, and there's no inner life. There's no imagination. There's no dreams. There's no hopes. There's nothing going on inner. This is what Chazal says. Stam akum mifuf poyed. Akum, the idea of external, is mifuf poyed. Blobbering. It's pitbut varim. You're just sounding sounds to fill the noise. You familiar with this type of speech? I'm sure you've encountered. Huh? You're just talking chitter chatter. You're talking. There's no expression. There's nothing that's coming from a deeper place. There's no dvar mayitzim and alev. It's talking. This dibur, this is the sipur that you're saying. This sipur that you're telling, this is the story you're telling. This sipur becomes your story. This becomes your sefer. This becomes, which sefer does it become? This sipur, the story that you're telling. It becomes the lower story. It becomes the Golah story. It becomes the exile story. The story that's Mitzrayim. There's a higher sefer that was told by HaKadosh Baruch Hu Kaviyachol, which is the story of our perfection, of our wholeness, of our full life, of who we could become in this world. That was the original story. That was the HaKadosh Baruch Hu sefer that told that sipur. We live our life and we tell our story. The question is, what kind of story are we telling? If we're telling a story the way Sefer Yetzirah wants us, we should tell the story the way Kaviyachol. This is what Rav Tzaddik is writing. If we're saying the story the way that Kaviyachol created the story, just like Kaviyachol is chakak Hashem tzavakis, that there was a chakika in the atzmius of the Ein Sof, and from the atzmius of the Ein Sof, and the essence of the Creator, Kaviyachol, there was an expression, and then it came the Yudke, and then it came Yudke Vavke, and it's tzavakis, and it gave life, and it gives further in life, and it's tzavakis, and kel shakai, and it's giving life, and it's more chayis, and it's starting from the Nekuda of the Nekuda Pnimius, which Tzaddik calls the coil before the dibur. That comes from the original sound, or even beyond the sound, the place of the machshav. It comes from the deepest place of the heart, and then it's being expressed. Then it's Ruach HaKodesh. That's the Ruach HaKodesh. When you look at this world, and it's the dibur of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's the expression. It's the expression of, it's the story that Hashem is telling us. It's coming from the deepest place of the Eibishter. It's coming from the deepest place of the Kuz. We sometimes are foolish that we don't recognize that story. We're not hearing that story. We're looking sometimes Kaviyachol, the story, and we're saying, I don't understand. It looks like Pitbut Dvarim. It looks like the Eibishter Kaviyachol created a world and doesn't know, and I don't know what's happening. It looks like the mouth spilled out some words, and this is the world that was created. But it's not. It's us. It could be for us, but that's not the way it is. Because the way it is it comes from the deepest place of the Ein Sof, and from that place it wells up some type of creative process that gives birth to this thing. On the deepest level, the Bria Is in Saba Kadosh Baruch Hu lives dir b'tachtonim. Kadosh Baruch had a desire, a taiva to create. It's a creation, creativity. Creativity doesn't come from a need. Creativity means when a person needs to be creative. Creative is when something comes out of you. You don't think yourself into creativity. You can't. I don't know if you're a creative person. You can't create something. If you want to say, okay, now I'm going to sit down and I'm going to be creative. I'm going to think of a new idea, or I'm going to compose a new song, or I'm going to write a new. Creativity has to emerge. Where is it emerging from? Where is the creativity emerging? The breeze, the taiva of Kaviyachal, the taiva of Nesava Kadosh Baruch Hu, is an olam keser, the highest level of keser, because it's beyond rotzen, it's beyond seichel. It's the pnimius nafshi of the atzmius ein sof. It's like the essence of the Creator is spilling over into creation.
It's Az Yash, and the Rashi this is Az
Lash-
Allah
Oh yeah, Allah believe it. Yeah, exactly. And again,
overflows.
correct. It's an overflow, and the world is a symphony, is a music, is a beautiful song that Hakadosh Baruch Hu is telling. Negaya to our world, it's two things. First of all, we have to recognize that and try to live this way. And if we and because Sefer, the Nikud of Sefer Yetzirah is that everything is interconnected. What we see in the outside, in the olam, in the world, and we see in Zman, and we see in time, is always a reflection of what's going on in our own consciousness, our own nefesh. If we can live our lives in a way that our sipur, our story that we're telling, the story that we're living, the story that we're writing, the story that we're telling, if we can live our lives in a way that's expressing our ein sofius, our neshama, our chelik elokah, the shechina that's resting, Shem Svasai Tiftach, that my mouth should become that place that expresses that the Svasai Zumat Shechina, like the Gra writes in the Siddur. That if you can express that idea that you can to come out, then you're actually mirroring this whole process, and then you have a good life. I don't know what to say. You have all the Amtak and you're doing Amtak Zadin correctly. Because then it moves. It goes from the moyach, it goes from the lev, then it goes to the moyach, then it's splashed in the kavod, then it's splashed in the nevorim, and it's all coming from that deepest place of what that is. I see the olam is not running, so maybe we should just finish one last. Mamish, can we finish one last thing? Okay, one last thing.
We're writing the story now.
Okay, because otherwise we're going to have to pass it over again next week. That in my Mechik Din from the Marami Pano, he writes this nekuda, which you say, which eventually comes, what you say from the tzaddikim. And the Ma'amar Chikdim from Rami Pano, who's into Ilam Amalbush and very much connected to Sefer Yetzirah, where he says, "B'chol masecha v'sefer nechtavim." Again, and it says about Rosh Hashanah Iftachim Gimel Sfarim. So the b'sefer. What's the Sfarim? We have to understand exactly what this means. Every single thing that a person does with Sefer Tovim is written into your book. There's a book. He says it's mamish like there's an aver. There's a surrounding aura, or however you want to translate this.
Like the legend of Sapiri.
Sapiri, yeah. It's like a sapphire. It's a story. There's a story that's surrounding you. And that story is what you're imprinting that story. That's the Avir. You know, the Avir of Gan Eden that the person has, that Schar Mitzvah Mitzvah, the Nefesh HaChaim talks about it, but it's from the Ramapano. The Alter Rebbe talks about it in Geras HaKodesh. Huh? Yeah, correct. You're creating it. So that's the Avir. That's the Avir of Gan Eden. So what's open when it says the Gimel Iftachim, the Avir of the person, it's not a mystery book. It's not a book somewhere like between Jupiter and Mars. It's a little book of yours. It's with you. And then the Chassidish Sfarim say even further. The way this Yisrael writes like this. This is a Torah from the Maggid. We're talking about the Gon a lot. The Gon says the same word also. That the Maggid writes, what does Ksiva L'chaim means? Zachrenu L'chaim means that's the machshav of the person. The person holds the thoughts. Zachrenu L'chaim we should remember for life. Mashenka tzadikim hagam shem zoichel v'roid meimus Hashem Yisbarach hem betuchem b'yishuas v'chazdei. Then on Rosh Hashanah, a person walks around with tremendous gewaldige faith. Because a person knows that the Eibusher Kaviyachal looks into your thoughts. And according to your thoughts, you're judged. Not only what it says Maram Pana, which is that the Sefer, that it's the Chtavim, is the Aviri, Hakadosh Baruch Hu opens on Rosh Hashanah and looks at your story. But what's the first thing that shows up in your story? What you're thinking right now. The Ramosha, the son of the Kodesh Magid, writes that he's always wondering, he brings down Das Moshe in Rosh Hashanah, he says he's always wondering why his father was so happy on Rosh Hashanah. It didn't make sense. He says his father was always B'Simcha Rosh Hashanah. But then when he read this Torah from his father, he understood why. Because on Rosh Hashanah, the Eibusher looks into your machshavas, looks into your thoughts. And if you're walking around and Rishoy Malay Charatas, and you're full of charata and full of regrets, and this, okay, so then that's the thought that's showing up. But Zachein El Chaim, if you remember yourself for life, to translate this is on a very simple level. There's Adam Nidim B'chol Yoim, right? Adam Nidim B'chol Shah, a person's judged every moment, a person's judged every day. There's Rosh Hashanah, of course, that's a klallus thing. But Adam Nidim B'chol Yoim, B'chol Rega. And the din is on you. And what is the Eibusher Kaviyachal looking at you? He's looking at your thoughts. What's going on in your Sefer? Yeah, maybe you did something wrong a day ago. Maybe the Sefer, the Sipur, the story that you told yourself a day ago, and the story that you said was not a good story. But right this second, what's your story? And if you tell yourself a good story, and your machshava has positive, good thoughts, because you did tshuva, I'm not saying because you're parakel, because you said I did something, I moved on, and look at me now, and I'm sitting, I'm davening, I'm sitting and learning, I'm trying to do the Ratzon Hashem, and I'm working, I'm trying to feed my family, I'm trying to be a Mekadashim Shemayim Merabim, and that's what I'm doing my whole life, and that's my thought process. The Eibusher gives you a gewaldik here. This is the story we should tell ourselves. This is al pichsagis. You have to tell yourself a good story, and you tell yourself a good story, you get all the brachas that the Eibusher wants to give you. Ma'ariv? Shall I get down, Ma'ariv? Shall I get down? Can you get down? Yeah, Platonic ideas. Bringing the clear part.